Hey friends, welcome to the Theology Program. This is a little bit different. We're doing this through Credo House. Thank you for joining us. If you're joining us, this is what we're doing, or at least what I'm doing. I'm going to be going through the entire Theology Program for the first time in 20 years with it updated. So I'm updating it all, and we're doing the entire Theology Program from beginning to end. I don't know how long this is going to take me. I think it's probably going to take a year, and I'm not sure what time this is going to be on live, but it'll be uploaded as well to our YouTube page. So you can keep up with us there, or you can watch us live. I will have a time down at some point, maybe lunchtime. It may be early in the morning. I'm not really sure yet. But the entire Theology Program, I can't wait to do this. It's going to be so much fun. I'm updating it all from, theology doesn't really take much updating if you do it right. It shouldn't, at least. I mean, there's things that you update with the current culture, what's going on in the culture. The thing is, what was going on 20 years ago and what I taught about what was going on has really come to fruition. So it's going to be basically changed and massaged a little bit there. But there's a lot of things that, for 20 years I've been teaching theology. I've been teaching this. There's all kinds of things that I would like to tweak and update, new illustrations to give, and maybe just different ways of looking at some of the things. Most of the things, like I said, it's going to stay the same. If you ever went through the Theology Program of Credo House. Now, first of all, let me tell you, I would love to have your support at Patreon. That is where we are at. That's where I am at. That's where I get my support from. So please, if you can, support us. That's the way I make a living. But this is the Theology Program. This is what we're going through. I'm going to keep this Patreon up so that you can see it there. But are you excited? I'm excited. This is great. We're going through the entire Theology Program. I think I can see your text if you text me. I'm not positive, but we'll get that fixed and I'll get it worked out if I can't. But right now I'm looking at a text box and it's supposed to be there. And I'm going to be looking often over here to see your questions, and so we can have discussion as we're going. But we're going to go through the Theology Program. First thing we're going to go through is my very favorite subject. I've told you this many times. I think it's the most important subject in theology today. I'm not saying it's the most important subject in theology overall. That would be theology proper, Trinitarianism. I think that would probably take the cake there. But with regard to how, you can't even begin to do Trinitarianism. You can't even begin to study God. You can't even begin to understand all of the big picture of theology until you read the prologue to the book. And that's what prolegomena is. Prolegomena is the prologue to the book that nobody ever reads. You're supposed to read it, but most people don't. And we're going to go through the whole prologue. The whole prologue, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you today. That is going to be what I'm focused on today, trying to get you oriented, trying to get myself oriented towards this new platform that I'm doing this through. I am doing this through OBS rather than my normal Restream. I'm pushing it through Restream, but it's going through OBS. I think you can get this on Facebook. My Credo House Facebook. You can get this on my Credo House YouTube. It should be coming through on Patreon. So if you're on Patreon, you can go there and just push play. So it's there and you comment there. And it should be coming through on somewhere else. Discord, maybe. I don't know. Did I ever put it on Discord? I think it's up there on Discord as well. The Credo House Discord. So you can go to Credo House and become a Discord member, but you can only do that if you're a Patreon member. So let's get started here. We're going through Prolegomena. I know I call it Introduction to Theology, and I did think about changing the name, and I probably will next time, because as I was sitting here, I thought, why not? Why call it Introduction to Theology? Whenever it is formally speaking Prolegomena, I can sub-name it Introduction to Theology. That's what it is. But Prolegomena. These are all the things you have to know before you do theology. And I'm telling you, if so many people, I talk to people every day, all the time, that are going through, building their faith or going through a crisis of faith. That's one of the things I do a lot of, is talk to doubters whenever people go through a crisis of faith at some time in their life. Usually it's around your 30s, somewhere in there. You begin to, they're just, life hits you really hard, and expectations that you had, or maybe you didn't even know you had, come into play and mess with your theology, mess with your whole orientation. And sometimes it breaks down because you grew up in a very, and necessarily so sometimes, I mean, we grow up and we learn from our parents, we learn from our church, and usually we're not critical thinkers until we're around, our mid-20s to 30s, sometimes in our teens. I mean, it's different for everybody, but whenever you become a critical thinker, if you don't know how to think critically, if you haven't thought critically yet, you begin to doubt things, and that's normal. It's normal for everybody. But prolegomena is so important for us as we go through this, and that's what I take people through whenever they are doubting their faith. I don't try to answer all of their questions, because that can kind of build on the problem. If they have all these doubts, about what it is that, somebody has told them that there are contradictions in the Bible, and showed them a contradiction, and your faith falls apart. Somebody tells them that the Old Testament, you can't, it has a wrong view of science, and you begin to wonder whether that's right or not, and your faith falls apart. Well, if you had a proper prolegomena, your faith couldn't fall apart on something like that. I don't believe that there are errors in the Bible. I don't. I believe in inerrancy. And I believe the Old Testament, when understood and interpreted correctly, is always true, because the Bible is always true. However, at the same time, prolegomena teaches you how to orient your faith and says what things are worth, what things can actually make your faith fall apart. Sometimes people go through times of uncertainty, and they realize that while they believe something, they may not believe it as much as they thought. And so they begin to doubt, because you grow up and you have this orientation of faith where it's all or nothing. Belief is a black or a white issue. You either believe or you don't. And whenever you kind of lose that emotional connection to your belief, and we all do from time to time, whenever you lose that or doubt it, you think your faith is gone. You think your faith is falling apart, not realizing that there's all different degrees of faith that is still true faith. And just because you're questioning your faith, just because you're doubting your faith, just because you're no longer emotionally a 10 on the scale of 1 to 10 about your faith, doesn't mean your faith has to fall apart. It never should. Nobody's assurance is as high as they would want it to be. And we're all seeking every day to believe more today than we did yesterday. Now let me take a drink of my coffee out of my Credo House cup. One of these days, you're going to help me get the Credo House back. We're going to work together. We're going to do that on the Patreon, and we're going to have a Credo House just like we had before, where we're having scholars come and teach. Right now, I'm teaching from my office at home. By the way, can you find the Batman? That's the question of the day. Can you find the Batman behind me? Wait, hold on. Let me see if you can see. Yep, you can see it. If you look good enough, you'll be able to find the Batman. So that's the one today. And each time maybe we'll have you find something different. That'll be fun. Okay, let's talk about what this course is about. This course. Is it a course? I mean, I'm going through it. So let's say I go through theology in a year. Every day for 30 minutes or so. Could I get through the entire theology program? It's 60 sessions by itself, and whenever I used to teach it, and I was on the clock, it took me an hour and a half at least every single session. So what is that? 90 hours. Yeah, you could translate that into 90 days. But let me tell you something. I'm not going to get through that quick because I'm not quite on the clock. But I am going to try to get through all of theology in a year. I'm going to try to plan it out as I move forward and look through this and say, can I structure this out 5 days a week to where in 1 year we get through the entire theology program? Then I'll put myself on some type of clock. But let's talk about this first. Course or prolegomena description. These sessions, these first sessions, are talking about methods, study methods of doing theology. Its primary purpose is to teach you skills for developing a critical Christian mind. I know some of you don't like that word, but it is. We need to be critical. We need to be critical of what we hear and what it is we believe. I want to teach you to become critics of what you're taught, but also what it is that you already think, what it is you already believe, to evaluate your beliefs and to see if they're worthy of being kept, if they really pass the grade that they need to pass. Okay, so we're going to try to construct a solid foundation for thinking through life's most important issues. And that's what theology is. It's life's most important issues. This is where it's all at, folks. There's all kinds of things going on in the world. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the world. I mean, every area that I look at is just absolute craziness. And sometimes it's just bizarre. I can't understand how things work and what's going on out there, and I try to figure it out. And whether it's politics or what's going on the internet and all the different theories that are out there, because we have such access to so many different things. I mean, everything is being questioned today. Science, politics, all the theories that we thought we held true, you can find anything to question them, and they all sound right. I mean, whoever you're listening to, if you are not an expert in the subject, you don't have any reason not to trust them or not to believe them. All kinds of stuff is going on. I know it. But let me tell you something. This is the stuff that matters more than anything else. It really is. You can set aside all that stuff, and we're going to work through all of theology. With the craziness going on in the world, this is our stabilization. This is where we come to find our sanity. Hey, Apologetics Awareness, thanks for saying hello. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's see here. You're going to learn about the various sources for theology. Lots of sources for theology. Did you know that? There's not just the Bible. And you know what says there's not just the Bible? Guess. The Bible. The Bible says there are more than one source for doing theology. Sometimes we say, I get my theology from the Bible and no place else. That's not true. That's not true, first of all. You get your theology from lots of different places, and you need to be aware of it. But also, it's not good. That is, I mean, even if you could just get it from the Bible, it wouldn't work out. I mean, you've got to learn how to read. You've got to learn about subject, verb, object relationships. The Bible doesn't teach you these things. The Bible doesn't teach you the basic principles of logic. The Bible teaches you to look to the stars and to see the glory of God. So there's lots of sources the Bible assumes that we already know about. Emotional ones as well. Emotions are a big part of our theology. I'm not a mystic, but at the same time, I understand the place that emotions have, and I give emotions credit because it's a big part of who I am. As a matter of fact, I would argue that it's the biggest part of who we are. It's the part we try to stabilize more than anything else every day. It controls us more than anything else, more than logic, more than our experiences, more than anything, more than our parents, more than our traditions. Emotions is a big part. We got to understand how to evaluate our emotions and how to keep them in check while we're doing theology and what they have to say about theology, because they do have things to say. What we're going to do, I'm just endeavoring to teach you to think theologically, to construct a biblical worldview that makes your Christian witness relevant to all people in need, including yourself. Okay, so let me give you some quick kind of rundown on what to expect over the next year. First of all, you're going to learn that I hope you do. You're going to learn that theology is much, much more than just an academic enterprise that is reserved for the theologians out there. You're going to learn that everybody is a theologian. Whether you think you are or not, you are a theologian. Anytime you think about any of life's most important questions, you are doing theology. I know that sounds weird to some of you, to do theology, but that is what we do. We do theology. We do theology every day. And the thing is, we've got to do it well, not haphazardly, not just because people before have taught us or we've grown up doing it a certain way, not just because our church taught us this and this is our tradition, not just because our parents taught us these things and we just believe and are emotionally tied to what our parents say. We have got to do theology well, because we are trying to honor God. We believe in God, and we believe that it honors Him for us to seek and find Him, but not to do it, like I said, haphazardly. Okay. You're going to know the different sources. I'm going to talk about 5 different sources. That will be later on. I don't know how long, a month, 2 months. That'll be a while away, but we're going to talk about the 5 different sources and evaluate all of these sources. We're going to talk about broadening our perspective of theology in general, and then you're going to learn how theology is done within a Christian community. This is very important for us to understand that theology is not something that we do alone. We never do it alone. All these books behind me, I don't do theology alone. I do it in a community with other people. I talk to people. We've got opportunities to do it within even social media. I know it's hard to. I know it's hard to find good places on social media that have any type of constructive way in which they do theology, but we can bring that to people. We can. You see those back there? I don't know if you can see all of those books up there. Those are all the church fathers, the ones up top. I'm pointing at it right there. See John Calvin on top of the church fathers, and Martin Luther over there, if you can see him right there on top of the church fathers. That's a lot of books written by the first 4 centuries of the church, people who lived in the first 4 centuries of the church, and I look to them. Now, they're not inspired. I don't just go to them. Some traditions do just go to them, as we'll learn later on. But they are part of my sources for theology. They are part of my community. If I do it alone, if I do theology all by or get a small group, me and my family, and, what they've taught me is what is true, and we all believe it together. And if anybody disagrees with us, we just laugh at them, or we just feel sorry for them, or we just pray for them, whatever else it may be. We've got to get out there in community. Community is going to be the best thing for you, because you're gonna break free from your presuppositions, because you're going to see people who believe things. Maybe they believe in Christ. Maybe they believe in His resurrection. Maybe they know they're sinners, but they really believe a lot of other things different than you. And you've got to consider that. You've got to consider what that means. What that means from a broader theological perspective, from the standpoint of God. Does God require us to have all the right answers to everything? Or could it be that there's a value in this community of disagreement? Now, Catholics, I know you would disagree with that. That's why you have your magisterium. That's why you have the Pope, to keep from disagreements. But what I will argue during this class is disagreements are part of God's plan for us to grow in theology. Hey, Timothy, thank you for showing up. I'm glad I'm doing this too. It's exciting. This is God's plans for us to do theology. That is something I believe very much. Alistair McGrath, a great theologian, historical theologian, systematic theologian, one of the smartest guys out there in theology. But Alistair McGrath wrote a book about the Reformation and about why the Reformation in the 16th century, these guys got together and rebelled against the current institutionalized church, which we now know as the Roman Catholic Church, but they rebelled against them and broke free from them, and they were no longer under a pope. They were no longer under a big church institution that kind of kept everything in line. Well, how did they stay together? How did they? What happened with this situation? Well, Alistair McGrath makes the argument that the elasticity within Protestantism is one of the greatest strengths of Protestantism because it keeps it reforming. It keeps it pushing forward. And we can't do this if we're not in community. If we're staying with our current denomination, we're staying Baptist and we don't talk to anybody but Baptist about theology. We're staying Presbyterian, we don't talk to anybody but Presbyterians. We're staying Reformed Calvinist and we never talk to Arminians, that's for sure. These are all different theological positions and denominations within the church. We cannot do that. We have to use that elasticity that God uses us. It's a wrestling match we get into. Theology is a wrestling match. It really is. And sometimes you're able to defeat the current subject and really be sure about it, and sometimes you're not. But that's part of the let me put it this way. This may put it in perspective. I think we're going to be doing this for all eternity. I think whenever we get up into heaven, sometimes we think we'll have all knowledge and we're going to be up in timeless Ethereum of some type of existence that is all of equilibrium between everybody. That's simply not true. There's no sense that the Bible teaches us that. There's no sense in which we should ever believe that. I think we're going to be learning for all eternity, and we're going to be wrestling with our theology for all eternity. We'll have better perspectives. We won't hate the person who disagrees with us. And yes, I think there'll be disagreements in heaven. I do. I think it's part of the way that God grows us. Man, I'll tell you what, Catholics really are going to get mad at me over that. But I do. I think it's part of God's plan. I don't think there's anything wrong with disagreements. What is wrong, and this is part of prolegomena, what is wrong is when we get so hardened in our categories that we can't talk to anybody else. Or whenever we do, we have to argue our point, and that's the first thing we have to do. We have to convert them to whatever it is our pet doctrine is at that moment, or we have no fellowship with them. They may be believers in Christ, they may believe he rose from the grave, but they're not Baptist. They may, defend the faith. They may go out and debate with people, thousands of people, and do great things. But you know what? They're Arminian or they're Molinist. These are different theological positions. And so that's the first thing I see whenever I see this person is that he is an Arminian. He is a Molinist. He is a Calvinist. I get that a lot. I'm a Calvinist. And I get people all the time who look at me and that's the first thing they see and they're angry about it. They're angry about me being a Calvinist. And I understand they disagree with me. I understand that there's strong disagreements in this area. I understand that you can't understand how I could be a Calvinist. But we got to listen. I understand how anybody can be just about any one of these positions. I really do. I understand why Catholics are Catholics. I understand why Arminians are Arminians. And I sympathize with them. I know how they got there. That's what you have to do. This is what you have to do. You have to loosen your grip. We hold our grip so tight on things thinking we're supposed to hold that tight because it's about God. It's about our faith. Of course we're supposed to hold tight. No, there's only some things we hold tight on. We will talk a lot about this, about essentials and non-essentials. What are the essentials of the faith? And oh man, I got so much more on that than I did whenever I first taught it. I mean, it's just I've studied that continually. It's been a lot of fun. I haven't even gotten to the next slide, have I? That's okay. but these are the things. This is prolegomena. These are the first things. This is the prologue to the book of theology. It is the methodology that we use. And the hardest thing that you're going to go through, friends, the hardest thing about this, you can leave me after this podcast. You can never come back if you'd like, because this is so hard, and you may not be able to do this. And if you're not able to do this, you're not able to do this. I mean, you can be that stuck in the mud, and that's what I call it, stuck in the mud. I mean, and I understand how you get stuck in the mud. So I was stuck in the mud, but you can be that stuck in the mud to where you can't consider that you're wrong. And that's the hardest thing that you're going to do. I have to have you in every single subject. Every time we open this podcast up and every time I begin to speak, I have to have you be out there and consider that you may have it wrong. If you can't consider that you may be wrong, if you start this waiting for me to confirm your prejudice or you're gone, then you can't learn. How can you learn if you can't be wrong? How can you learn if you start with the supposition that I'm right about this, but let's see what this bozo has to say? I mean, you got to start with the idea that this guy may be smarter than me in this area. He may have some things to say that I've never heard. I know as you get deeper and deeper in theology, I'm 30 years down the road doing theology. I'm 51 years old now, and I've been doing it pretty seriously for the last 30 years. And I know you get to a point where you think, man, there's not anything anybody can tell me. I've pretty much figured it all out. Let me tell you something you haven't. It'll never stop. I am so surprised every single day about how much I learn about every subject. And it's great. And I do approach these things with the supposition that I might be wrong, because I am not infallible and neither are you. God is the only one who can't be wrong. We can in every single subject, except for maybe we can't be wrong when we say a triangle has three sides. I mean, that's got to be right? By definition, it's got to be right. So, Credo House Coffee Cup, advertisement for Patreon. You support me on Patreon, and we will bring the Credo House back if I get enough of you. Got to have a lot of you, or somebody's got to do it really big, but either way, that's what we're working towards. Not working towards to get away from this. This is too much fun for me, and I've always done I've been doing podcasts since 2005. Do you know that? Since 2005. I don't know if there's a longer running podcast than mine. Although I went through, 7 years of being stuck on the opioids, and my podcast either were not that good, I was falling asleep during them, or I haven't done as many, but we're picking it back up. And I've been off the opioids for a long time now, since 2017. Started to sleep almost 2 years ago. That's a different story. We'll talk about that later. You've got to understand that you could be wrong. If you cannot start with that, then you're not going to get anything out of these. Okay? That's where we begin. Okay, well, listen, I've gone 30 minutes, and I haven't even gotten to a first slide yet. So how in the world am I going to get through this in a year? I have got to map this out. I can't wait to do this with you all. Please comment. Please let me know if you're excited about this. I mean, if you want me to do this, what time you would like me to do it, because I'm going to be doing it live, then I'll upload it. But tell me whatever you can. I love the encouragement to see you guys getting excited about this. No, another thing to let you know, we're also going to be doing this formally starting very soon, starting this summer, to where you can take the theology program, the 6 classes of the theology program for a grade. You'll get a workbook, syllabus, and we'll get together and discuss it on whatever platform, maybe Patreon. If you're a Patreon member, you'll get free tuition. So that is more reasons to become a Patreon member. But let's see here. Let me switch this back, since I never did get to. No, that doesn't need to be going. Let's see here. Let me hide that. There we go. Okay, guys. I do thank you all for showing up. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about me doing this. I know there's already been some comments there. I'm glad to see them. They agglomerate over here in one place, no matter where you comment from. So, and I'll be looking at that, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys each day. I'm not positive what time yet. Probably tomorrow. We'll do it around 12 o'clock again. In just a little bit, just as an aside, we'll be doing another podcast. So keep an eye on our pages. Wherever page you're getting this from, it'll come back through for the next one. We will see you next time, friends.